Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into this really fascinating intersection of nostalgia, poetry, and, well, the hidden psychological depths of being a kid. We're looking back, way back, to when the world seemed both infinitely magical and, honestly, terrifyingly large. Think about it. Remember when you'd watch Saturday morning cartoons and completely buy into the idea that a painted tunnel on a brick wall was a perfectly functional road as long as you were a roadrunner? But, as you'll see, beneath that colorful, zany surface of childhood innocence, there's actually a much heavier reality that we adults often try to ignore.
Okay, let's dive into this. I really want you to think back for a second. What were you secretly terrified of when you were 10 years old? Was it just monsters under the bed, or was it something bigger, something your parents didn't even realize you were stressing over? As adults looking back, we tend to paint childhood as this time of pure, unadulterated innocence. We just assume kids are only worried about toys and playground rules. But through the lens of a brilliant piece of poetry and some incredibly candid online discussions it sparked, we're going to see that the 10-year-old mind is actually wrestling with some incredibly heavy cosmic dread.
So, moving into the rules of cartoon animation. To really understand that protective layer we wrap around childhood, we got to start with the universally understood logic of cartoons.
Just look at these real discussion threads from all over the internet. Adults absolutely love discussing wacky cartoon physics. We're always asking each other what abilities we'd actually want in real life, or what would happen if cartoon physics actually dictated society. It's a massive cultural touchstone. We share this collective memory of a universe where, gravity only works when you look down, and anvils fall from the sky but nobody gets a scratch. It's comforting, right? But a poet named Nick Flynn actually took this super comforting concept and flipped it totally upside down to reveal why we actually need it so badly.
And this brilliantly illustrates the central metaphor of our explainer today. In his widely discussed poem, Cartoon Physics, Part 1, Nick Flynn defines this specific rule. If a man draws a door on a rock, only he can pass through it, while anyone else will crash into the rock. Now, this isn't just a funny visual gag. In the context of the poem, it's a metaphor for the illusion of safety. It's literally the magical thinking we let children believe in, just so they don't crash into the hard, unforgiving realities of life way too early.
Now looking at the universe in silence. Flynn doesn't let us stay in that comfortable cartoon world for very long. He actually forces us to confront the exact things we try to hide from kids.
Listen closely to these lines from the poem. Children under, say, 10, shouldn't know that the universe is ever expanding, inexorably pushing into the vacuum, galaxies swallowed by galaxies, whole solar systems collapsing, all of it acted out in silence. Just think about the sheer weight of that imagery, the silent, completely indifferent universe. Flynn is arguing here that this cosmic dread is simply way too heavy for a child's mind to process. The silence is actually the terrifying part, the total lack of a soundtrack, the lack of meaning.
So what do we give them instead? Well, Flynn points out that adults prefer 10-year-olds to stick to what he calls earthbound, tangible disasters. We let them imagine burning houses, car wrecks, sinking ships. Why? Because sinking ships have lifeboats, burning houses have fire trucks with big ladders. In these earthbound scenarios, if you jump, you'll be saved. And more importantly, these are arenas where kids can actually imagine themselves as the hero. You absolutely cannot be a hero against an expanding vacuum. There's no fighting a collapsing solar system, right? So, looking back at age 10, here is where we really need to shift our perspective. Did this protective barrier actually work, or are children just far more perceptive than we ever give them credit for? Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how Flynn perfectly captures a child's attempt to control all that chaos. A child places her hand on the roof of a school bus and drives across a city of sand. She knows the exact spot it will skid, at which point the bridge will give, who will swim to safety, and who will be pulled under by sharks. In the sandbox, the child is literally playing God. She's mastering the disasters, dictating the physics of her own miniature world. It's a coping mechanism, you see. She's practicing for a world she instinctively knows is dangerous and super unpredictable. And when readers online encountered this poem, their reactions proved Flynn's underlying point perfectly. Adults think they're shielding kids, but the kids, they're already there. Look at this incredible comment from a user named Newwine. They wrote that at age 10, their absolute biggest concern was solipsism, worrying their whole life was a dream and their loved ones were just figments of their imagination. I mean, they were literally wrestling with Plato's cave at 10 years old. They said they felt like a freak for worrying about something so absurd. This reveals the secret weight of childhood, that existential dread is already inside the house, and those cartoon physics, they're really just a temporary bandage. Another reader, Baby Tay Bay, shared a very similar experience, noting that the concept of a forever heaven absolutely terrified them as a kid. The sheer scale of forever,
made them literally dizzy. This perfectly validates the poem's assertion. A child's mind just isn't built to process the infinite, whether that's an expanding universe or an eternal afterlife. The cartoon logic we feed them, where stories neatly resolve in exactly 22 minutes, is an absolutely necessary defense mechanism against the dizzying terror of infinity.
But of course, amidst all this profound philosophical reflection on the internet, you always get that one person who brings us abruptly back to Earth. A deleted user simply commented, "When I was 10, I shat my pants." And honestly, that is also a perfectly valid summary of being 10 years old. It's this chaotic mix of profound existential terror one minute and a complete lack of physical coordination the next. Keeps us grounded, for sure.
Okay, let's talk about processing through poetry. When those cartoon physics inevitably fail us, how do we cope as adults looking back? Well, the data actually points to poetry itself as a vital tool. So the crucial point is that reading and writing poetry serves distinct, proven mental health benefits. First, it offers emotional release, a way to externalize and process those intense feelings and traumas we've been carrying since we were kids looking up at the silent stars. Second, it challenges stereotypes. Community discussions emphasize that poetry doesn't just come from sadness. Some of the most philosophical, fantastic work happens when people are happy and their creativity can truly flourish. And third, the impact of reading it fosters immense camaraderie. When you read a poem like Flynn's, you suddenly realize, wait, I wasn't the only one who felt dizzy thinking about the universe at age 10. It completely reduces that sense of isolation.
In fact, one of the most powerful community insights shared in these discussions directly challenged the whole harmful, depressed poet stereotype. One user stated, "I believe it is a form of self-harm to avoid treatment while trying to claim you are protecting your art." This is such a profound realization. It tells us that we absolutely don't need to stay trapped in our trauma to create beauty. We can seek help, we can heal, and our art can actually grow stronger alongside us. We don't have to be the suffering artist just to make sense of the world.
And that brings us to our final point. Gravity finally kicks in. The cartoon rules eventually, inevitably, expire.
Let's move to and see how this builds to the final, devastating punchline of the poem. Flynn writes about the child playing in the sand. She will learn that if a man runs off the edge of a cliff, he will not fall until he notices his mistake. That is the ultimate rule of cartoon physics, isn't it? Wile E. Coyote only ever falls when he looks down. Flynn is saying that childhood innocence is exactly like running off that cliff. You are suspended in midair, perfectly safe, supported by literally nothing but magical thinking and your own ignorance of the rules of gravity. But eventually, inevitably, you look down.
Adulthood is the fall. Adulthood is realizing the real physics of the world. We all had that exact moment where the illusion shattered, where the safety net vanished, and gravity finally took hold. So I leave you with this to reflect on today. When did you first look down? When did you first notice your own cartoon physics mistake? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep looking up, and I'll catch you next time.